We are recording. Welcome. You are witnessing a live recording of the All About Pigeons podcast interview with Frank McLaughlin. You're doing a fine job. They're missing all this cool stuff. I think if we keep doing it over again, they'll figure it out eventually, right?
Well, yeah. I mean that's the
it
thing.
took
It's
us like
we record
every
Tuesday at 7 o'clock. You know, they just never knew that.
You think this stuff just shows up?
Right. We just water the podcast tree and every now and then kick some fruit off of the thing into a basket, email it to Spotify.
You're going there. You're going there. We don't monetize our Spotify podcast either.
Right. Have you guys noticed that yet? That when you listen, it's real nice. You just listen to the show. There's no interruptions about insurance and all other nonsense that you'd be getting with everything else. Because we don't monetize it all. It costs us money to do, but we believe in it. We believe it's helpful. You know,
it just costs Phil money.
Mm-hmm.
Just an AI program that Phil pays for.
Right.
And
well, that Chat GPT program, the Maker Chris program, dude, all these updates it keeps giving me.
You need to pay for a better version, my friend.
I know the latest update that was politically correct cost too much, so I'm just leaving it the way it is.
Discounted model.
Right.
I'm still gonna run it live.
We are early, but we'll just use this time to chit chat a little bit. You know,
for sure.
Give me a chance to light my cigar here.
What does Frank do?
Did you not hear my intro? I gave like a 2. I timed it. It was like almost 2
I totally
minutes.
did. Yeah. I totally did. I got it.
Okay. Have you checked out his YouTube? He's got a pretty nice YouTube, man. He does some pretty practical things, not just sitting there talking about, nothing for 20 minutes. He's pretty informative.
I think I've mentioned before that I don't watch YouTube, but it's not because I don't like YouTube. It's just because I don't watch it.
Are you ready for me to bring this guy in?
I'm feeling good, baby. Let's.
Chris is running a live stream right now too, just if anybody wants to jump in with any live questions. But we do have some questions that were posted. We'll touch on those too. But do you belong to any race clubs in your area, Frank?
Yeah, I actually belong to the Braintree Norwood Racing Pigeon Club.
Okay.
And it's about 40 minutes from the Lofts. And I've been a member of the Rhode Island Racing Pigeon Club. And I've raced from both clubs the last several years. The Boston Concourse, it got kind of small. We lost a lot of membership. So I started racing in the Southern New England Combine. So I raced out of Rhode Island, and the Braintree Norwood Club races both out of Boston and the Southern New England Combine. But for years, I was a member of the Braintree Club, and then, for many years, the Plymouth Racing Pigeon Club. And then that kind of, we didn't get the membership, so it was absorbed by, Braintree Norwood and some of the other clubs in the area.
How's the health of that current club?
Oh, good. The Braintree Norwood Club, we probably have 20 members. So really doing well. And there's some top fanciers in the club. And it's funny because of my YouTube channel, we've gained 3 new members in like the last couple of months. And it's really was surprising to me. So hopefully maybe there's been a lot of membership around the country, the world, but we have 3 local guys that'll be flying young birds with us this coming August. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That's cool. It's good to see growth.
Yeah, that's fun.
How do you feel about one loft races? Do you feel like one loft races hurt the sport and individual clubs, or what are your thoughts on that?
Originally, when they first started to get going, I was thinking it was going to hurt. I always thought that everybody should race their own birds, but now I see them helping across the board. There's many, with the U.S. being so huge, there's a lot of areas where there's just not enough fanciers to have a club. or people don't have the time to compete with their own pigeons. So the one loft racing is what fuels the sport right now. That's probably the only reason we're growing are at least remaining somewhat stable in the U.S. is because of the excitement for one loft racing. I think it's really helped.
The guys who seem to do good in the one loft races are guys that are also in clubs, so they really actually do know their birds that they're sending in, compared to people who go about just kind of buying the best and never really flying anything, just kind of doing a breeding program solely, trying to breed that one loft bird. It seems like the guys we talk to that do race clubs as well, and maybe it's just more of a knowledge of that bird and what you're sending in, they seem to do a little bit better in the one loft.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same. I think it's good to be able to test the birds yourself instead of just, you buying unproven pigeons and then sending their babies out. But there are a few, there's a few top names, that are strictly one loft fanciers, and they have an amazing success, but
yeah,
they're really good pigeon fanciers. But for me, the same birds that win at the one lofts are the pigeons that, win for my, win in my backyard. So
yeah,
it's all the same.
What kind of distances does your club race?
We have 4 long distance races at the end of old bird season. A 400 mile, which is each long distance race is like 408 miles for me. And then we have a 500, 2 500s, they're around 507, and then 600 miles. And I race 608 miles at that distance. So we do, race out through 600 miles, and it varies. I'm on the longer end. There's probably people that fly maybe 620, and there's others that fly 550. But yeah, it's great. We have some nice long distance races in our area. We've always been known for the New England Open races, where the local combines will have a big mass liberation, and we usually race the long distance races as open races, which adds more excitement to it.
This is the All About Pigeons podcast. Today we have on here Frank McLaughlin of McLaughlin Lofts. He's the owner of bestpigeons.com. That's America's #1 racing pigeon auction site. Frank has been at the top of the sport in the powerful Boston Concourse for over 40 years. He relentlessly tracks down the premier pigeons on the world stage. Since the 1980s, Frank has had numerous opportunities to visit top Belgians and many other famous fanciers. McLaughlin Lofts has not only imported birds from these lofts, but also has become close with the masters of the sport. Frank has been asked to speak in multiple countries, and his seminars have become very popular. In 2022, he started the McLaughlin Lofts YouTube page, which has grown to over 7,400 subscribers. This allows Frank to offer all his insight, methods, and systems to the pigeon world through his videos. Frank, we appreciate you coming on and sharing with us as well and all of our listeners.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I was excited about this tonight.
So we posted up there.
Thanks for coming on, Frank.
There he is.
Oh, you're welcome.
So we had some questions from some listeners, so I'm going to give you a couple of these real quick. And so let's see. First off, we have a question from Ricky Gonzalez. He says, is there any regimen that you put on your birds to boost the overall health of the pigeons? Like, example, apple cider vinegar, pre and probiotics, oils, or oregano?
Yeah, I'm really, as most people know that follow my videos, I've been totally antibiotic free for 11 years. And I decided that was it. 11 years ago, I would no longer flock treat the pigeons with antibiotics. Now, I worm my pigeons, I vaccinate them for everything. And I think probably the most helpful thing I found would be the oregano products. And more recently, I've been using, it's an oregano and it's a cinnamon combination. And I just love it. And when I was over in Zimbabwe last summer for the Victoria Falls one loft race, the vet over there was talking about essential oils, how beneficial they are, oregano and cinnamon. And when I found this product with the combination of both, the oregano and cinnamon, I think it's nearly as good as the antibiotics. And if you're trying to move to natural health, that's my favorite. I use apple cider vinegar after the race for a couple days. And that's about it for, that type of product, vitamins but nothing too crazy. But I think if someone's going to natural health, the oregano product is probably the best way to get there.
And is that like the oregano oil that you would put under their feed?
No, this is too highly concentrated. You'd have to put it in the water. New Biotic is what I'm using, and it's oregano and cinnamon. It's 1 milliliter to the gallon. So I use a syringe to measure it out, and it's strong. And, the birds don't love it at first, but they get used to it pretty quick. And my birds have it in the water when they return from the races. Every race, they have it, on race day, it's in the water with some light electrolytes, maybe some honey. And I usually give it that. And then on Tuesday, I'll also give them that. Sunday and Monday, they get the apple cider vinegar. And then like Wednesday's red cell, the horse wormer. I'm, pretty much a natural, just all natural across the board, but it's worked, and the birds keep getting stronger. It can be done. A lot of people think they can't go antibiotic free, but after the first year or so, you see the strong one. The weaklings separate themselves out. I'll lose the weaklings, and they're not in my population anymore. I'm not breeding from them, so their genetics are taken out of the population. So by going natural health, you can really tell, the strength, what's your best pigeons, by just going all natural.
And what kind of ratio when you give them the apple cider vinegar? I've seen ratios about 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons to a gallon. Is that what you're doing after the race?
I'm a little stronger than that. I do about an ounce and a half. So I think that's about 3 tablespoons to the gallon. Yeah. And when they finish the race, they drink the oregano product. And I get links, it's, on my pigeon store if someone wants to buy it, or I talk about it on my YouTube page. But I use the oregano product, and then I follow up with 2 days of the apple cider vinegar. And a lot of the vets claim that it has a positive effect of knocking down, canker, as canker starts to jump up after a race. So I'm not sure if it makes a difference. I mean, psychologically, it makes a difference for me. And then midweek, I will give them the yellow drops. It's another natural microbial. Although this season I had a tremendous old bird season, and I just had no time for any of that stuff. So I didn't give them any yellow drops. I didn't mix anything on the feed. It was just pretty much grain and minerals and oregano and apple cider vinegar, and they flew great. But my birds have been on natural health for a long time, so I think someone switching over should use the natural products and be pretty regular with them.
Being part of a race club, do you do vaccinations that are required through the club?
There's nothing required through the club. All my members, they do vaccinate. They're all really good about it, and you'd be surprised how many people still around the country don't vaccinate for like even paramyxovirus, which I think is crazy because I've dealt with it over the years. And if you get paramyxovirus and your birds don't have immunity to it, or you haven't had generations of pigeons that have been vaccinated for it, you'll get wiped out. And I help a lot of the local guys with vaccinating. If the pigeons are crated, I could probably vaccinate, 1,000 pigeons in an hour if they've already been crated. So it goes pretty quick.
We've had 1,000 pigeons in an hour. Wow.
Maybe not that many, but yeah, as quick as quick as you could hand them to me, I could vaccinate them. Just a few seconds a pigeon. So yeah, I could vaccinate a lot of pigeons. I mean, I'll crate up my race team and just vaccinate them. If someone was there to help me just to hand me the birds, it goes really fast. But taking them out of the crate, it slows me down. But yeah, I used to export to the South African $1 million pigeon race, and I exported to the Victoria Falls One Loft race in Zimbabwe. So I'd have over 1,000 youngsters come in every spring for export, and you have to get pretty good and pretty quick with the vaccinations. No, but I'm strict. Like, I vaccinate as I wean the babies. I vaccinate for PMV and rotavirus. And the consensus of all the vets pretty much around the world right now is rotavirus is the root of all these other young bird sicknesses. So as I'm weaning them, they get the PMV rota combination, and I give them the pox vaccine. So every one of my babies is vaccinated for those 3 things at weaning. And I really feel that the pox vaccine causes such a massive immune response that it makes them, more, it gives them the ability to fight off other things going forward. So, but if I could recommend, when you wean them, PMV at least at the minimum, and if you can do the PMV rotavirus with the pox vaccine, I think you're putting yourself at a bit of an advantage.
I just recently learned that some folks vaccinate by sticking them in the leg. I've been scruffing them. What do you do? You must be doing them in the leg. It's faster.
You know what? I've never done the leg. I haven't done it. I mean, I vaccinate behind the neck, and I actually vaccinate towards the head, and I go between the shoulder blades, pretty kind of a little lower on the bird, and I use a shorter type needle, maybe a 1/4 inch needle, but I haven't had a problem. But I've never tried in the leg. I do vaccinate for pox. I'll put a microscopic droplet of pox vaccine from a syringe. I'll pull the skin out on the thigh, and I'll just put the droplet through the skin on the thigh, and I'll get a little BB take for the pox. But yeah, the PMV and all my other vaccines I do behind the neck.
Okay.
That's interesting, because we had something on our Facebook for a while, and some people were saying that, well, can you prove that vaccines work? It's like, well, if your birds aren't dying, it's at least not hurting them. It's keeping them going, and especially if you're in situations where you're mixing birds in crates, and how you guys are doing your races, or if the people are showing their fancy birds and exposing them to a ton of other birds, then you really should be just taking care, especially if these are your prized birds.
It's so very important. I mean, I've dealt with PMV probably, maybe it might have been like 5 or 6, maybe longer, 7 years ago. Someone sent me some fancy birds that I was going to export for them, and I had in my barn where I would keep my the pigeons for the import business, and my own pigeons were about 10 minutes away. So I had the fancy birds maybe 4 or 5 days, and one of them, the head started spinning. And I was like, oh no. And then all of them. So I was going from my barn to the pigeon lofts, and I was changing clothes and everything. Didn't want to take any chances. And within 2 weeks after that, I had maybe 10 late hatches that I got lazy with, and I decided, well, I'll vaccinate them when I get to it. I'll do it whenever. Well, every one of those late hatches and the property 10 minutes from the barn all got PMV. So I carried it over to my birds. It's highly infectious, and it gets on your clothes or on your shoes, but it's scary. I would recommend everybody to vaccinate for at least PMV, and even if they do the birds one time in their life, I vaccinate everything at weaning, and if they go to the one loft race, they'll get vaccinated there. If I'm keeping them myself, I'll vaccinate them again with a booster maybe 3 weeks or a month later. Again, the vets say you shouldn't vaccinate them within 2 weeks. Like if you hit them for PMV if you don't wait more than 2 weeks, you can hurt the birds. And whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but I'm nervous about that. So I vaccinate everything at weaning. I give them a booster, and then before breeding and before the race season, I'll vaccinate with a PMV salmonella bronchial. It's a respiratory vaccine. I'll give that to the breeders and the race team. It's a 3-in-1, and they get that every year, and I think it works great. I've had no issues, and I've shipped my pigeons that have been vaccinated to lofts that all their birds are dying of PMV, and my birds have been just fine. So it definitely works.
Yeah. Okay. We have another question here from Christopher. He says, I would like to know how Frank feeds for the extreme marathon races, say 600 and 700 miles. Do they need to be heavier then?
That's the biggest misconception. I do pretty much everything with feeding, and if people watch my YouTube videos, I'm fanatical about feeding because I don't like to train pigeons. I don't work them very much. My birds tend to, like my long distance birds will fly, say, a 400-mile race, and they might fly 9-10 hours. They'll stay in the loft for a week, and then they'll train Tuesday and Thursday, and then go back to the next race, a 500-mile race. So in a 2-week period, they've had like 2 flights of 35 minutes and maybe 50 minutes. Now, during this rest period, they're on a predominantly barley mix, and then I usually just add the fats for 2 days, not more than 2 days before the long distance events. Most people send them way too heavy. They send them full and round, and too much. The birds can fly hours and hours on just a little bit of fat. So you want them light and buoyant. You don't want them round and full. If they're round and full, they're too heavy. My birds, even to the extreme long distance, they're never round. Their muscle is never blown out like on the keel. The muscle's always laying flat, and they'll fly 12, 13 hours like nothing. And they're light and corky and buoyant and weightless. And so for extreme long distance, I'll feed the fat seeds usually for 2 days before shipping, because I'm really worried about them getting heavy. The last thing I want my birds to be would be heavy for the long races. And most everybody ships their birds way too heavy to the distance. They ship them too heavy to all the races, not just long distance, but 95% of the people ship their birds extremely, well, way too heavy to the races.
What type of feed do you feed your birds?
Well, my birds in the racing season, I usually use I race predominantly on barley, because I can keep them nice and corky and they don't need a lot of exercise or work if they're fed barley. So during say for the short distance races, they eat maybe 70% barley, and I'll mix in 20 to 30%, say a Champion versus a Lager, like a breeder mix. So
what kind of protein is in barley?
It's not very high. My mix that I'm probably racing on for the short distance, that they eat 6 days a week. On the day of return, they get all the good stuff. They get all the fats, they get all the grains they want. But the other 6 days, they're on it's probably a 10% protein mix, 9% protein.
Mostly carbs,
low fat. Yeah, mostly carbs. Low fat, low protein, and mostly carbs. It's more important to nail the body weight for the shorter races. So I'm really strict with the feeding, and the barley will keep them nice and buoyant and corky, because again, almost everybody ships them, fat for the races. And if everybody ships them fat, a fat pigeon's going to win. But if I'm shipping my pigeons like I ship them, and you're shipping fat pigeons, your birds aren't going to be able to keep the speed. They're going to just fall behind. The heavier ones can't keep the pace. Even in headwind races, the heavier ones can't keep the pace. I've always said, if you master feeding, you master racing. And I do everything with feeding because I don't like to train them. I don't have time. I don't live at the lofts. I go over in the morning quickly, and I'm in and out of there. And they race, and they usually, for short races, they race and they have 2 training tosses a week with no loft flying. I don't loft fly the birds at all. And I can fly at the top week after week after week, but it's all done with feeding.
Gotcha. A couple of viewers there.
Any questions coming in from?
Oh, here, Sally. Sally wants to know more about record keeping, cleaning the loft, and things you would recommend to beginners, I guess is what the question is.
Well, I think the biggest, a lot of the beginners, they'll look and watch online, and they see these Europeans and their lofts are spotless. And half the time these guys most of them, they're professionals, or they have help, people that are just working with the birds. And I recommend a deep litter system. The birds are much healthier on a deep litter system. They get exposed to the friendly bacteria. It helps their immune system. So I use wood pellets, the brand that you burn in the wood stoves, not the stuff made for like animal bedding. It's not as good, but I'll just buy like the oak wood pellets that they burn in the wood stoves, and I'll use that in my breeding lofts. The racing lofts, I don't put anything on the floors, but I only clean them every Saturday before the birds come home from the race. So it's not like they're spotlessly clean. It's not necessary. If they're dry, you don't have to kill yourself, scraping all the time. And, I just don't have the time for that. So all the breeding birds, they're on the deep litter, the wood pellets. The racing birds, it's just the lofts are cleaned on, the morning when they're coming home from the race, because I usually have more time on that, on the Saturday. And for record keeping, for my pedigree program, I use the Loft Manager online. It's an online program that you can access it, from your phone or anywhere. It's out on the cloud or out on the net, and I like it. I mean, it does a lot. I only use it for pedigrees. I don't use it for anything else. And again, like everyone else, I mean, I just keep records of, as I band the babies, what pair they're bred from, the siren dam and all that sort of good stuff. Nothing too fancy. I just have charts in the breeding sections where I write everything down, and then I can just, take that and put it into Loft Manager if I decide to.
How deep is the when you use those wood pellets? How deep are you putting that in there?
Well, I would say they have 40. I think they're 40-pound bags. It will probably cover an 8x8. It's only a light layer.
Oh, okay.
It's not a lot, but as they break down, they get very voluminous. Like you'll put in one bag, and when you go to clean it, you'll take out 6 bags. I mean, they break down, and so my lofts right now, it's funny. I think the loft is one of my breeding lofts has 3 sections. They're probably all about 6 or 8 foot. But I just put a bag down in each section, and then now it's, it's about a good inch covering the floor. And I move it around as it gets spread out. I'll kick it around and remove the clumps, but it's a good product. And every 8 weeks or so, I might change it out. If it'll break down to the point where it's getting a little dusty, and I'll change it out. But I wear a respirator mask when I'm working with the pigeons now, and I didn't do it for the first 45 years of my career, but I've had so much exposure. I recommend wear the respirator mask. I mean, not that you probably never ever have an issue, but why take a chance if you're going to have, especially the kind of exposure I have to the birds. I mean, I deal with a lot of pigeons with my auction business and with my own pigeons. So it's been at least 5 or 6 years that if I step in the loft, I put on the mask.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, he's talking about what older fanciers wind up getting is what's called pigeon lung, and that's it's real nasty, and it's terrible. Yeah, because if you're in pigeons your whole life and you get pigeon lung, that's pretty much it for you. You cannot be around that stuff anymore.
Yeah, I've seen people react to it. It scared me. Like it's almost like the flu hits them instantaneously. They start shaking. They go into a fever, and just from getting the exposure to the dust. And I was tested 4 or 5 years ago, because there is a test for it to see if you're predisposed to it or you have the genetics for it. I don't actually have the genetic or the whatever it is. I don't have it. And I'm thrilled, but I also, even so, the dust for all those years, it's best to probably wear it. And my respirator mask has the filter, and it filters gases and particles. So it's a good mask, and you can buy it at Amazon or at Tractor Supply like DuPont, but they're terrific. Not the most comfortable thing, but I'm used to it. But I think it's beneficial for pigeon fanciers to wear it.
Yeah, compared to the alternative, I mean, it's just another preventative sort of thing you could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And someone who's coming into it, who's just kind of coming into racing pigeons or getting into pigeons, your YouTube is definitely a good resource. I was telling Chris earlier, it's not just a bunch of ramblings of a pigeon guy. You jump right into subjects, and it's a pretty concentrated dose of information. It's a good resource. And any other tips you can give to people who are just getting into the sport?
I mean, I think people make it too complicated. It's really not that difficult. If you can keep them healthy and you can train them adequately and you can get used to feeding them correctly, you can fly at the top. And I think a lot of young fanciers think that somebody like me has all the secrets, but I tell everything. Like all my competitors watch my YouTube channel, and they apply some of the systems, and they feed like me, and then they play with the birds all day. That's all they do is mess with the race team. So it's tough to compete. It's not that difficult, and I think go for it and try to keep them healthy naturally. And there's really no secrets. And if I had a secret, it's on my YouTube channel. I mean, I'm sure that some people cringe at the information that I offer up, but I offer, if I know it and I think it can help, I provide it. So it's not difficult. I hope more and more join. And I'm excited that, we gained 3 new fanciers in the last month just from local fanciers from my YouTube channel. And I was really happy. So we're getting them started. We're getting them some birds, and they should be all right.
We got another question on the live feed here. It's from Samantha. How many pigeons does Frank have?
Well, like everybody else, I have too many. And I probably have about 50 pair of breeders, and I race a team of celibate hens, which if you're going to race any system, you can see it on my YouTube channel. Race celibate hens. There's nothing like it. They race to the perch. So I'll have about 30 hens, and I also race 30 celibate, cocks of boys. So about 60 on the race team. My brother, the hens race under Dan McLaughlin, his name, and the boys race under McLaughlin Lofts, my name. But the hens always destroy the boys. And I raced widowhood for 30-something years before I started messing with hens. And I wish I started 30 years ago, because I had a serious, boy bias, thinking they were faster and stronger, but it's not the case. My hens destroy the widow cocks. So I have like maybe 60 on the old bird team between the two lofts, 100 breeders, and I breed about 120 youngsters for myself. The rest go to one loft races, and then a bunch of them are bred for sale. And there's always, I've got flight pens with a few odds and ends and some extra cocks, extra hens, and I have a lot of space, which sometimes when you have a lot of space, you tend to put pigeons in it. So too many pigeons.
Well, at least now we know what the number is for too many pigeons. So anything below that, everybody's okay.
Yeah, I caught like 450 or something. I don't know. I'm doing pigeon math anyway, so it don't matter.
It's easy. It's easy to have a lot. I mean, I probably have 100 that I could sell, like that I try to keep every year. I'll breed a bunch of late breds, and a lot of times I'll let them grow up, and you sell some of them, and then as yearlings I can sell. So on top of that, I probably have 100 in the flight pen that I could select from to sell. And
how much do the good pigeons sell for these days?
Well, I think it's just silly. I tell the story, and many of you may have heard of the Cannibal, and the Cannibal was probably the best breeder in the last 25 years or more, 30 years, the best breeder in the sport. And I went and visited Dirk Van Dyke, the owner of the Cannibal, in 2003. So we're only talking 21 years ago. And I bought from the Cannibal, his father, and his brother for €750 a piece. And he was probably one of the best breeders in the world. Fast forward to today, if you buy a youngster from one of the best breeders in the world, you might pay $40,000. So it's just exponential. I mean, my pigeons, even my pigeons have gone up. I mean, most of them are in the $400 to $600 range for my best pigeons. I've got a few super hens that are more, but pigeon pricing has gone crazy. But I recommend to new fanciers, you don't have to spend big buck to get great pigeons. I mean, I raised a round of late hatches off my widowers. I put the celibate hens with the celibate cocks at the end of the season and raised a round, and those are the pigeons that people should be going for. And I mean, you can't even give them away, and it's comical. Those pigeons would probably be super birds for new flyers to start with. But everybody wants to buy from the best breeder, or they want to be a collector and have something related to this famous bird. And there's good birds everywhere. I mean, everybody has good pigeons nowadays. And if you go to a good fancier in your club that's not a professional, and I would recommend buying off his race team and get started that way. And usually they're late breds and they're inexpensive, and that race team will be the breeders 2 years, 3 years from now, and many times you're going to get some great pigeons.
Well, Frank, you've definitely been given some good advice. I really like that, talking about all the luck you've had by flying your young hens. I think.
Yeah, and some of these hens, like I'll win for two of my best hens. One was a 5-year-old this year, one was a 4-year-old, and my pigeons, they can race a really long career. Now, part of it is they're antibiotic free their whole lifetime. The other part of it is for every 2 hours on the wing, my birds get 1 day of rest. So if they fly 6 hours, there's 3 days of total rest in the loft. They don't leave the loft. If they fly 12 hours, they're not leaving the loft for like a week. They're locked in just to recover and rest. most everybody in the sport, their birds will fly, 500 miles or 300 miles, and a day later they're training them again, or they're pushing them out to fly. And I just shake my head. I think it's crazy. But I have pigeons that can win. I just retired a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old this past Old season, and they were just amazing. My best was a 2-year-old, but those 2 hens were incredible. Most people, they're worrying about them stopping laying at 5 years, and I'm still winning with them on the race team. So those hens are really something.
Thanks for coming on, and all the listeners out there, check out the website, bestpigeons.com. And you can find all these videos that he's making reference to on his YouTube channel for McLaughlin Lofts. It's got a lot of good videos on there. And if your question didn't get answered here, I'm sure that you'll find an answer on one of his videos down there. And Frank, we appreciate your time. I know it's a little bit later for you, but thanks for coming on and sharing all your knowledge and wisdom with our listeners today.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm very thankful that you had me on. And if anybody has a question, they can always email me. I mean, I'm very accessible, and I like to help and give back. So, and my YouTube channel does have a wealth of information. I think, anybody who hasn't seen it will enjoy it.
Thanks, Frank. You have a good evening.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Maybe we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely, yes.
Thanks, Frank.
That was a pretty good one. He definitely gave us a lot of good information there. Like I already said, but that information about the hen and the overfeeding, he said too. He said like 95% of the guys are sending their birds in too heavy. So
means everybody could save a lot on feed.
Right, yeah, make some adjustments. And
that's my take. No, I'm just kidding. No, there was a lot there, and he sounds like he's on the ball on most of it. He's got a pretty healthy regimen that he keeps up, and he's doing the antibiotic.
Yeah, all natural. He's doing the oregano, which you've been kind of doing yourself. You've been talking about that.
Yeah, I've been doing that, and he's absolutely right. The birds don't like it when they first taste it, and they can taste that stuff, and I think they can smell it too, because they'll pick around it for a while when I put it on the feed, and then when they get hungry, they'll eat it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a day or two. They'll eat it up. There's always leftover when I feed the oregano oil. It's spicy.
Why is it so spicy?
It's so spicy.
Oregano is a strong stuff. I mean, I've taken that before when I've had a cold, and you got to chase it with something. So yeah,
I took a shot of it when I wasn't feeling good.
Yeah. You gave your recipe on how to make some of that your own, so you guys got to search through the podcast to find that. That's Chris's secret recipe on making his own.
Yeah. Actually, my secret recipe was Google it.
Oh man, you just gave away the whole secret.
Oh man.
Trying to get this set up, like I said, we're a mouthpiece for the listeners, so if you guys have questions or people that you want to have brought on, Frank McLaughlin, we brought him on. Cheryl Barnaba was the one who had requested that he come on. A lot of people had different questions for him, and we're able to get your questions to him. So keep them coming, guys. Questions, anything like that, people that you would like to have us brought on, topics, whatever, we'll do our best to go out and find them.
Kind of cool, man. This live stuff. We had the question from Ricky Gonzalez over there in Tonopah, Arizona. Mm-hmm. Then we had Sally from Boise, Idaho, and Samantha from Odessa, Texas. It's cool to have one from a different country.
Yeah, I think that Christopher,
that's pretty neat.
I don't know where he was from. That's what it's about. It's just about promoting the hobby and doing it this way through letting the listeners ask their questions and everything else. So yeah, keep them coming, guys. Yeah. We do recordings every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Arizona time. So if you're not sure what time that is, just, hey Alexa, what time is 7 o'clock Arizona time? Boom, there you go. Or Google it.
If you got Alexa.
Yeah, or Google it, whatever. It's Arizona. We never change our clocks. It's the rest of the world that's gone bonkers, but we always stay the same on ours. So as your clock changes, the time difference will be different. It's always 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. Check out our Facebook. We'll put the live stream up there. So whoever we are interviewing that night, you can jump on there with us, ask questions as we're talking directly to the person.
Hey, by the way, we started an All About Pigeons podcast page, like a profile page on the Facebook. And the only way we can get it's just like all the rest of the other platforms. The only way we can do live stream from the computer and get actual real audio is if we get followers. We got one follower on there, and I think it's me.
I think it is you. I just opened that up.
I'm feeling
So
I'm feeling pretty lonely here, guys. So I need your help on that one too. So hit up that page, give it a like and follow or whatever it is, and that way eventually we can get enough followers so we can actually do a stream from the from a real legit streaming software and not my bogus iPhone 5.
Well, if we could, we're trying to get this to work through the Facebook and stuff, because our Facebook group is growing good, but really a YouTube, if we could get more subscribers on the YouTube, that would be a really easy platform to do a live with and get comments that way. So bear with us, just like we've said before, like how the first, I think 6 episodes, the audio is kind of wonky, but we get it figured out, and we'll get this figured out too. And it's going to be with your help. So Chris, give us another one of your beautiful outros.
This has been another glorious recording of the All About Pigeons podcast. You've been listening to Chris and Phil and Chris and Frank McLaughlin.
That's right. Like, share, whatever you listen to, give us a good rating on there. It really helps the algorithm and helps people find the podcast. We don't pay to promote, nothing like that. It's pretty much through whatever you guys share and word of mouth. So keep it up if you enjoy it. If you're listening, we do appreciate all your support.